It's late. The lights are off. The day is finally done, and you're lying there in the dark, almost asleep. And then it happens. Out of nowhere, your brain reaches back into a drawer you thought you'd locked, pulls out one specific memory, and holds it up to your face. Something you did, something you said, the way you treated someone, or the chance you let slip, or the moment you wish to God you could take back. And your whole body flinches. You actually wince in the dark, alone, over something that happened years ago. Your face goes hot. You pull the blanket a little tighter, like that could protect you. So tonight I want to ask you something gently. Why is it that you can forgive almost anyone on earth, except the one person you can never seem to let off the hook? Because that's the strange part, isn't it? If a friend came to you with the exact thing you did, you'd know what to say. You'd be kind. You'd tell them they were young, they were hurting, they didn't know. You'd mean it. You'd put a hand on their shoulder and tell them to stop carrying it. But when it's you, all of that compassion just evaporates. The kindness you give everyone else somehow never reaches the one address it's needed most. You keep the door locked from the inside. So before we go any further, I need you to hear this. The fact that this memory still stings does not make you a bad person. It makes you the opposite. A genuinely careless person, a truly cruel one, wouldn't be lying awake aching over a thing they did a decade ago. They'd have forgotten it by lunch. The very fact that it haunts you is proof of how much you care about being good. You are not your worst moment. You are the person who has spent years wishing you'd done better. Those are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. But that's not how it feels at 11 p.m., is it? Because there's someone in the room with you. A judge. And this judge has set up court in your head, and the trial never ends. He plays the memory back in slow motion. He freezes the frame on your worst second. And then he leans in and asks the cruelest question there is. How could you? How could you have done that? And here's what I want you to notice about this judge, because it changes everything. He is judging the person you were back, then using everything you know now. Sit with that for a second, because it's the whole trick. The you of tonight has years of hindsight. You know how the story turned out. You know what that choice cost. You've had 1,000 quiet hours to think about what you should have said instead. You are strong now in ways you weren't then. You've healed things, learned things, grown in ways the younger you couldn't even imagine. And the judge takes all of that wisdom, all of that strength you earned the hard way, and he hands it to the version of you who didn't have any of it yet. Then he blames that younger you for not using tools they were never given. It's like screaming at a child for not being able to drive. Like standing over a 5-year-old, furious that they can't read a book they've never been taught. Like being furious at yourself in a photograph for not knowing what was about to happen next, when the whole point of a photograph is that the person in it can't see past the edge of the frame. The person in that memory didn't have your eyes. They couldn't see around the corner the way you can now. They were standing in the middle of their life with no idea how it would turn out, doing the only thing that made sense to them with the small, scared, incomplete set of things they understood at the time. And you are punishing them for it with knowledge they could not possibly have had. But you don't see it that way, so the judge keeps going. And it gets worse, because the memory doesn't stay one memory. Once the judge has you, he starts pulling the others out too. The thing you said at the dinner. The friend you stopped calling. The way you were back then. One by one he lines them up, and suddenly it's not one mistake. It's a pattern. It's evidence. It's a case being built against your entire character. And lying there in the dark, you start to believe him. You start to think maybe this is just who you are. Maybe the mistakes weren't things you did. Maybe they're things you are. And so you do the thing he wants. You sentence yourself. Quietly, without ever saying it out loud. You decide that you don't quite deserve to be at peace. That a person who did what you did should have to keep paying. And the payment is this. The wince in the dark. The replaying. The way you flinch every time the memory floats up. You've decided, somewhere deep down, that you're not allowed to set it down, because setting it down would feel like getting away with it. So let's name where this actually leaves you, because I think it's heavier than you've let yourself admit. You have been serving a life sentence. In a prison you built yourself, out of a single bad day, with you as the prisoner and you as the guard, and not one single other person in the world even knows the trial is happening. The person you wronged may have forgiven you years ago. They may not even remember. They've moved on, gotten on with their life, while you stayed behind in that courtroom, serving a sentence that no one but you is enforcing. Think about how strange that is. You are the prisoner, and the guard, and the judge, and the only witness, all at once, in a case the rest of the world closed years ago. You've been punishing yourself on their behalf for longer than anyone ever asked, in a courtroom they walked out of a long, long time ago. And here is the question that breaks the whole thing open. What exactly is the punishment for? If you've already changed, if you'd never do it again, if you've spent years being more careful, more gentle, more awake precisely because of what that mistake taught you, then the suffering isn't fixing anything. It isn't undoing the past. It isn't paying anyone back. It's just pain, running on a loop, with no exit and no purpose, hurting the one person who has already learned the lesson better than anyone. You are flogging someone who has already reformed. So here, gently, is the turn. The version of you who did that thing, the one the judge keeps dragging back into court, did not deserve a verdict. They deserved compassion, because they were doing their best with what they had and what they knew at the time. And I know how much you want to argue with that. I know the judge is already saying no. I knew better. I could have chosen differently. But could you really? With the exact fears you had that day, the exact wounds you hadn't healed, the exact things you didn't yet understand about people, about yourself, about how much it would all matter. You did the best you could from inside a life you were still learning how to live. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. And the truth is supposed to set you free, not lock you up. Self-forgiveness was never about deciding the thing was okay. It wasn't. You don't have to call it fine. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt someone, maybe even you. Self-forgiveness is something simpler and braver than that. It's setting down a weight you were never meant to carry forever. You can pick up a heavy stone and carry it for a while. To learn from it. To let it change you. That's what guilt is actually for. But guilt was meant to be a teacher, not a landlord. It was supposed to knock, teach you the lesson, and leave. It was never meant to move in, take the biggest room, and charge you rent for the rest of your life. So picture that younger you again. The one in the memory. The one you've been so furious with. Only this time, instead of putting them on trial, just look at them. Really look. See how scared they were. See how little they actually knew. See how hard they were trying with the small handful of understanding they had. They weren't a villain. They were just a person in the middle of a hard moment, hoping they were getting it right, and not always managing to. The same way you are, right now, tonight. The same way you will be tomorrow. And now do the thing you do for anyone else. Go and sit down next to them. Don't lecture them. Don't list their failures. Just put a hand on that younger version of yourself and say the words you've spent your whole life refusing to say to you. You did the best you could. You didn't know. I'm not angry anymore. You can come home now. That's it. That's the whole sentence, served. Not because the past stopped mattering, but because the person who made the mistake has carried it long enough and learned it well enough that the carrying is finished. You are allowed to be the one who forgives you. In fact, you might be the only one who can. No one else can walk into that courtroom and tell the judge to go home. Only you can do that, and you can do it tonight. So when the memory comes again, and it will, because old grooves are deep and these things take practice, you don't have to flinch and pull the blanket tighter. You can hold it differently now. You can let it float up, and instead of bracing, you can just say, quietly, in the dark, yeah, that happened. I was doing the best I could back then, and I've carried it long enough. You can hold the memory the way you'd hold a younger sibling who messed up and is sorry. Not with a verdict, with a hand on the back and a little bit of mercy. Because that person you can't forgive, that past you, frozen in that worst moment. They have been waiting a very long time for you to stop being their judge and start being their friend. They've been standing in that courtroom, year after year, hoping you'd finally look at them with something other than disgust. And you can give them that tonight. You can be the one who finally sets the weight down. Not because they earned it by suffering enough, but because they were always, always more than the worst thing they ever did. So if you've been carrying something tonight, something that makes you wince in the dark, I want you to try, just for tonight, to set it down. Not throw it away. Not pretend it never happened. Just set it down beside the bed and rest. You've been the prisoner and the guard for long enough. The trial is over. The verdict is mercy, and the door was unlocked from the inside the whole time. Stay a while. Breathe. You're allowed to come home. The lights are on.